Good morning, Knicks Nation. I hope everybody is well this morning. I hope everybody is healthy. Today, I want to go into, last night I decided not to waste my time looking at the presidential debate. I made that decision way before the debate started. Like I made that decision when I first heard it was coming. So I decided I wasn't going to waste my time looking at the debate, and I'm glad I did. So, and then there was no basketball. There was no championship game on last night. So I decided to go ahead and look at 3 or 4 of the Westchester Knicks games so that I can get an idea of really 3 players I was looking at. I was looking at Kenny Wooten, Iggy Brazdeikis, and I was looking at Lamar Peters. And so I was trying to get a gauge on, what we have there, what I think they can become and what their role could be on the Knicks, today going forward. And so I was looking at these gentlemen, and you know what? Some players, I'm going to tell you, some players are difficult to evaluate for me. Some are. Like if there's nothing that pops out at me that they're doing on an outstanding level that shows me, this is their ticket to really, bring something, it's hard for me to evaluate them. And so, there's some of like Denny Abdiva, I don't see anything with him. I don't see anything that pops out that tells me, oh, this guy's going to be a star in the NBA. And listen, I'm the first one to admit I could be wrong about him. I could. I'm glad the Chicago Bulls are picking ahead of us so they can take him off the board so the Knicks are not tempted to take him. Because I don't see anything. And again, I'm the first to admit I could be wrong about Denny Abdiva. He could be a superstar. I don't know. But that's how I, sometimes have trouble evaluating. But the 3 players I mentioned here, Wooten, Brazdeikis, and Peters. These are easy. I looked at 4 games last night, condensed games, and I was looking at, what they were doing, and these are very easy to evaluate. So let's start with Peters. First, let me explain what happened to Peters and why he's not on a 2-way contract. There is a contract called an Exhibit 10 contract. That is different from a 2-way contract. An Exhibit 10 contract means you're basically signing a player for Summer League. That's what that means. So you're signing a player for Summer League, and then you have until a date in October to make a decision as to whether that contract's going to convert to a 2-way, you're going to sign him to a regular NBA contract, or you're going to waive him. So last summer, Lamar Peters and Kenny Wooten were signed to Exhibit 10 contracts. And they were both waived in October. Now, after that, the team still has a choice. So in this case, what ends up happening is both players ended up playing for the Westchester Knicks as free agents, basically. They were playing for the Westchester Knicks on a G League contract. Now, the regular G League contract is basically a $35,000 a season contract. The season in the G League is 5 months. And so it's basically $7,000 a month for 5 months. And that's the contract. So that's the contract that the majority of G League players are on. Now, I'm sure they make some exceptions, but that's the general contract. Then there's the 2-way contract. So in January, Kenny Wooten was signed to a 2-way contract. Now, what's the difference now? And I'm trying to make this plain. I don't want to confuse anyone. So the Exhibit 10 contract is basically, just think of it as a summer league contract. Okay. And then there's the G League contract, which means you're under contract with the G League. And that's a $35,000 a season contract. Then there's a 2-way contract. And now what's that? A 2-way contract is when a player is in the G League, but they're represented by an actual NBA team, and they get 45 days of being able to play with the actual NBA team. That's a maximum they can play. And there's a big difference in the money there. So a two-way contract, the minimum guarantee is $77,000. And then if they get called up to play, they can make up to $385,000. And the reason is because when you get called up to play, because of the union, the NBA union, you are now on the NBA union wage scale and you get more money just for being, even being on the bench. If they called you up and it's asked you to be on the bench from the G League, you're getting paid more money. And the maximum during that 45-day window is you can get $385,000. So they signed Kenny Wooten to that in January. Now, what happened to Lamar Peters? Lamar Peters, first of all, let's talk about him. And then, of course, then there's the regular NBA contract. So Iggy Brazdeikis is not on a two-way contract. He is on a NBA contract. He's in the minimum. He's on a minimum contract similar to Mitchell Robinson. So he made about $900,000 last year, and he's going to make about $1.5 million this year. And we're going to, obviously, there's a big difference, and we're going to talk about why in a moment. But so with Lamar Peters, what did I notice? What I saw with Lamar Peters, this guy is definitely Isaiah Thomas, the 5'9" one, the recent Isaiah Thomas that used to play for the Celtics. That's him. That's definitely him. Okay. He's about 6 foot tall. He's a scoring dynamo. Okay. Defensively, he's a liability. It's not because he doesn't try. Now, let me also explain this. There's a difference between a really good defender, a bad defender, and a willing defender. Okay? There's 3 different terms. There's a willing defender, there's a bad defender, and there's a good defender. Let's take 3 examples. Julius Randle is a bad defender. What does that mean? That means that sometimes he takes defensive plays off. When there's a 24-second clock. You're supposed to be, if you're on defense, you're supposed to be on defense for 24 seconds. A bad defender may be on defense for 12 seconds, 15 seconds, and then they're liable to get beat, taken, confused, or just give up on a play. That's a bad defender. And you say, well, why would anybody allow anybody NBA level to get away with that? Good question. But sometimes the person's offensive abilities and outputs, lets coaches wink at their defensive lack of effort. Example, Trae Young. Trae Young is a bad defender. Okay, just bad defender. Period. He takes some plays off on defense. Okay. Offensively, though, obviously, he averaged almost 30 a game in his second year. Made the All-Star team based on his shooting range. So they winked at the fact that, he's a defensive liability. A willing defender is somebody that because defense is a lot about effort. It really is. So somebody that puts maximum effort for 24 seconds on a possession, trying their best to play good defense. But because of some physical limitation, height, weight, foot speed, hip speed, they just don't have the tools to keep up with most people. Okay. They're really trying hard, but they just don't have the tools. Their feet are too slow. Something, physical is manifested that doesn't allow them to become good defenders. They're really trying their best, but it's just, they don't have all the physical capabilities. Usually these type of guys are more physical because they're trying to make up for lack of athleticism by being more physical. Okay. Let me see. Who can I name that's like that on the Knicks? A willing defender. Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is a willing defender. His feet are slow. Okay. And if he gets caught in space with somebody that's quicker than him, which is not, there's a lot of guys quicker than him, he's going to get beat. He's going to try his best. Usually what he'll do is he'll foul because he's trying, but he's just not quick enough. Okay. That's a willing defender. And of course, then you have a good defender. Frank Ntilikina is a good defender. It's hard to beat him. His long arms will cause him to strip you if you're not careful. He will guard 1 through 4, and he's going to be on you, and he's going to be like a gnat. He's going to be irritating to the offensive player because he's always there. That's a really good defender. Okay. So Peters is a willing defender, but he's small. Okay. And so even in the G League, he would get beat a lot. And that's probably part of the issue with him coming up to the big league. But I think it's more than that. With a guy like that, somebody's going to use him. Just like Isaiah Thomas. You know, the Boston Celtics at first had him coming off the bench. And the Kings, when he was on the Kings, had him coming off the bench. And then eventually, when he was really having that MVP level year where he averaged like 29, they had him starting because he was just such a tremendous offensive player. Brad Stevens would mask him. And what there's ways to do that. One of the ways to do that is whoever he's guarding, when that person gets the ball, you want to double him or force that person into a place where they won't be in their high percentage areas, and then they'll give the ball up because they could take advantage of Isaiah Thomas otherwise. And he did that, very successfully in Boston. So that's how you try to mask a guy that's just not a good defender, even if he's a willing defender. And so Lamar Peters, I can see him playing in the NBA. Or definitely in Europe. He can get a contract and play in Europe and make himself some money. Because some of these European contracts are in the millions, right? So he can do that. And he'd probably dominate in Europe or in China. He'd dominate. But I can see him playing in the NBA. So what probably happened is, and I'm guessing here, but what probably happened is the Knicks could not make up their mind whether they were going to bring him on board or not. And his agent probably said, "Well, cut him loose because I could get him a better deal somewhere else." And I would not be surprised if we find that he's going to be on another team somewhere coming off somebody's bench, because he offensively is a really good player. Offensively, Lamar Peters, he distributes the ball well. He sees the floor for somebody his height. He sees the floor well. He's I like him, but defensively, he's a liability. And so the Knicks probably didn't want to pull the trigger, and his agent probably said, "I'll get my client, I got 3 other teams looking at him, and we'll get him, a contract somewhere else." And that's probably what happened. So when we last saw Lamar Peters, he was on a Westchester contract. He was a G League contract. He was not two-way on the Knicks. He was not on a regular roster. That's why you never saw him to be called up or anything, because they really waived him in October, and he was on the Westchester Knicks in a G League contract for the rest of the season. All right, so that's Lamar Peters. Then you have Iggy Brazdeikis. Now, Iggy Brazdeikis. Well, let me go into Kenny Wooten first. So Kenny Wooten was also on an Exhibit 10 contract. They waived him in October, and then in January he was immediately on the Westchester Knicks on a G League contract, and then in January, the Knicks signed him to a 2-way contract. Kenny Wooten. When Kenny Wooten grows up, and I'm not talking about I'm not saying he's immature, but I mean as a player. When he grows up as a player, he should become Brandon Clark. That's what he needs to become, Brandon Clark. Because Brandon Clark's physical attributes is just like Kenny Wooten's physical attributes. Brandon Clark is probably, I think, 2 years older. So when Brandon Clark came into the NBA this past year as a rookie, he was already 23 years old. So I think Kenny Wooten came into the NBA, he was 20. All right. So they're much different in terms of maturity level. But Brandon Clark, with the way he plays, the IQ, Brandon Clark shoots maybe 1-3 a game. Okay. And he shoots 36%, but that's deceiving because he only shoots like 1 a game. He really stays in that 12 to 15 foot range. He plays excellent defense. He moves well without the ball, and he helps facilitate. Like he's not obviously not a number 1, number 2 option. He's not going to call plays for Brandon Clark, but when he gets the ball, if he's going to shoot, it's going to be between foul line and the basket. And he's pretty good at that in that area, that 12 to 15 foot area of shooting. Okay. Once in a while, he'll hit a 3, but that's once in a while. Like I said, he takes like maybe 1 a game, but he really is really good, high IQ player. He's a distributor of the offense. He doesn't stop the ball. He keeps the ball moving. He's a good rebounder, and he's a really good defender. That is what Kenny Wooten can become. See, a lot of guys that come into the league, or people are looking at people in college, and you'll hear this a lot. Man, if he develops a jump shot, I mean, he's got all the tools. If he's developed a jump shot, he's going to be a star in the NBA. You hear that more every year. Every single year, there's at least 2 or 3 guys with that label. They could just develop a jump shot. That'd be really good. They could just develop a jump shot. They got the athleticism, blah, 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 blah. Most of the times, they never do. Elfrid Payton is a good example. They were saying that about him when he came in the NBA. Man, this kid from Louisiana, if he develops a jump shot, he's going to be all-star. And now he's been in the NBA like 7 years. He never developed a jump shot. Never came close to developing a jump shot. Okay? And that's, like I said, there's a lot of players like that. Elfrid Payton happens to be good enough as a floor general and as a defender that he still make a niche in the NBA, obviously. Even though he can't shoot. He can't even shoot from the foul line. I don't even think he shoots 60% from the foul line. Okay? And this is where Kenny Wooten, and this is different. I think Kenny Wooten can actually get a jump shot. We're not asking him to shoot 3-pointers. And Mitchell Robinson, but we're talking about Kenny Wooten today. So if he can shoot 12 to 15 foot consistently, we got something. Because he can really be Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark, in my opinion, I liked him last year. And I think Brandon Clark was probably, I would say, the steal of the draft last year. I mean, he was drafted in the 20s somewhere by Memphis. Memphis got over. They got Ja Morant at 2 overall, and then they went and got Brandon Clark. And man, you know, we're still in development mode. In 1 year, they went 5 years ahead of us in development mode. They already were flirting with the playoffs this year. And Brandon Clark was a big part of that. Okay. So I see that in Kenny Wooten. He can become Brandon Clark. And all he needs is the 12 to 15 foot jump shot, which I believe he can get, but he has to improve his foul shooting. Now, he didn't take that many attempts this past season, a game. He did. I think he took like 2 attempts a game. 3 attempts a game, maybe. But he shot only like 58% from the line. That's unacceptable. You have to be Brandon Clark shoots over 70% from the line. Wooten needs to do that. At first, I remember back in the day, because Wilt Chamberlain was so unstoppable, it was like a joke that he couldn't shoot foul shots because he could do everything else. Okay? Even when I remember seeing him, he was way past his prime when he was with the Lakers and Jerry West and them, and they were giving the Knicks fits back in the day, and they actually won a championship. Even at an old age, he was averaging like 30 and 20 or some crazy numbers like that, but he couldn't hit a foul shot, and he tried all kinds of things. Shaq came along with the same problem. Shaq was unstoppable, but he couldn't hit a foul shot, right? And people would laugh because the guy was so unbelievable and unstoppable in every other facet of the game that they just kind of joked that he couldn't hit a foul shot. Now there's too many guys that can't hit foul shots. And really, there's no more Shaqs out there. Okay. If a guy is that unstoppable offensively, yeah, you might be able to put up with it. But a guy, nowadays there's too many of these players that can't hit foul shots. Kenny Wooten has got to learn how to hit his foul shots, and he's got to get that 12 to 15 foot jumper down. This is what I, from watching him, seeing him, he could do that. This is not an impossible task with him. And with the coaching staff that we have now, he should be able to do that. I want to see this kid. Give me 45 days of this kid at least, this coming season, because if he can do that, he really is going to be good. Because what Brandon Clark does is he moves through that key area. He doesn't plant himself there like maybe a Julius Randle would or any low post player. He doesn't clog it. He's moving. He's moving through, and then when he catches it in that area, he's making a quick decision. Either he's passing, he's going to the basket, or he's shooting. And Kenny Wooten can become that. And so I'm very excited about him. Obviously, he could jump through the roof. He's very athletic. And as far as blocking shots, Brandon Clark only could dream about being a shot blocker the way Kenny Wooten is. Kenny Wooten is a tremendous, obviously, shot blocker. And that's good. But we got to have some more aspects to his game. And he has the ability to bring those aspects to the game. So I'm very excited about Kenny Wooten. I hope the Knicks, bring him up and give him some time on the floor. He is definitely a Tibbs type of player. He's a defensive player. He doesn't force his game, which is why I say he could really be like Brandon Clark. He's not forcing the game. He lets the game come to him. He does jump a little bit too easily sometimes, and that will get him in trouble. And I think he kind of knows that. He's not stupid. So, I like Wooten. I hope they bring him up and give him some minutes. Really, he's not going to be a stretch 4, And so I'm not sure where his minutes would come because we got Kevin Knox, and Kevin Knox's future is at the 4. So whoever they start at the 4, whether it's Knox or somebody else, whoever it is, Knox has to get some time. So if you're going to keep Knox, if you're going to develop him, you're going to commit to him, which I think they should, as we talked about in another video, you need to give him some minutes at the 4 spot. They might play him at the 3 sometimes. I think playing Kevin at the 3 is playing him out of position, especially at this stage. But yeah, so I'm not sure where Kenny Wooten would get his minutes. If it's a small ball 5, I'm not sure. But they got to figure something out with this guy because they really could have something with him, especially, like I said, he develops that 12-foot jump shot and he improves his foul shooting. He could be really good for us. Really good. Like I said, he's not a guy you're going to call a play for, but he's a guy that's going to make a key block in the key point of the game. He's a guy that's going to run the floor. He's a guy that's going to get a key rebound. That's him. He's going to facilitate and be get that hockey assist. You want guys, you need guys like that on your team. Okay. All right. That's Kenny Wooten. Iggy Brazdeikis. Iggy Brazdeikis has the ability to become Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles on the Utah Jazz. Okay. Iggy is a nice shooter, man. He got a sweet jump shot. When his feet get set, pretty much is going in. And he could do that G League. What I noticed about G League, which I hadn't seen that type of game in a while. I saw a couple of games, like I said last night, is the athleticism and the speed is not quite NBA level. It's better than college, but it's a little less than NBA level. But Iggy, whether it's in the NBA level or wherever, he can get that jump shot off. He's a spot up shooter. Defensively, he's a willing defender, but he's a bit of a liability. He could not guard 3s on the NBA level. He would get beat guarding a 3 in space. He would get beat. 4s, he has a better shot at because he's a strong kid. He's comparing him to Ingles. Ingles is a little more wiry, not as strong as Iggy is. Iggy's a strong kid, so he can really handle himself against strong opponents on the block. Even though he'd be a willing defender, he wouldn't be such a liability. I don't think that it would hurt us. If we have 4 good defenders around him. So in other words, you get Frank, you get Mitch, you get RJ, and then you get another good defender like maybe Dot or somebody like that. Or you draft a Vassell. You put these guys around Iggy defensively. He's not going to be the weak link that the other team's going to pick on. Like when we had what was that guy's name that now he's on Boston. Let me find his name. But oh man, he was getting so much money from us, and then we let him go. Hold on, I'm gonna find out this guy just a minute. Drives me crazy when I do that. Enes Kanter. Sorry, Enes Kanter. Whenever Enes Kanter was on the floor, the other team, the play was already set. You're going to go at Enes Kanter. You're going to pick and roll him to death because he can't guard even a door if it was tied to his back. So that's how bad he is. But Iggy's not that. He's not that. He's a willing defender. He's a little slower foot. You want him guarding 4s. I think he can even guard some 5s. He's physical enough to do that. But I like that jump shot. And I'm thinking, we're talking about stretch 4s, right? Iggy could do that. He really could do that. He could stretch the 4 for us. So, and he's not. Now let me explain. He's not on a 2-way contract. Iggy is on a regular minimum contract. So they don't there's no limitation in terms of bringing him to the Knicks in terms of the regular team. He could play as long as they want him to play. So I think they should bring this boy up pronto. Bring him up right away. And let's see if we can get him in the rotation because he's a gamer. Not only that, he's really slick. Like he's crafty. That's what I'm looking for. He's a crafty player. He lacks athleticism, but he makes up for it because he's a crafty player. I love the ball fakes he uses. He uses some really slick ball fakes and foot movements. I like Iggy, and I think we should really bring this kid up this season and let him play. This is one of them situations like we talked about. We want to use this season to see what we have. Okay. And we have some players. So we just have to see what we got. We got to give him some minutes. Frank needs 30 minutes a game. RJ's going to get 30 minutes a game. Mitch should be pushed to 30 minutes a game and see what he has. And we need to bring a guy like Iggy up. He should get 20 minutes a game. He really should. They should, if it was me, I would start Knox and have Iggy and Knox rotate. That's what I would do. I would, you know what? Because you want to see what you have. Now, if you could get a Christian Wood, obviously you're going to do that. I don't think Jeremy Grant is going to be available to us because I don't think Denver's going to let him get away. Denver's probably going to give him a max contract because that guy is too good on that team, and that team is in the championship conversation. So this is the time you overpay for a guy. Really, Jeremy Grant is probably a $90 million player. That's what I'm thinking. If he was there, he's a $90 million guy. So which means he's really worth about 5 years, 20 something million a year. That's what I would say for him. But they're going to end up paying him a max contract. He's going to get a 5-year deal. Maybe he gets something shorter because he wants it, but they're going to end up giving him what he wants. So I don't think we're going to get Jeremy Grant. I don't think anybody is. And then Wood is going to be available, but then you're taking a risk because we're not really sure what he's worth because he's coming off, the bottom heap and he just made his name in half a season. We don't know what we're getting with him, but I still would take a chance and sign him. Not to a crazy outlandish contract, but 12 to 14 million a year. I would look at him for that, but I think Detroit's going to give him that. So, if we don't get those two guys or we don't get a specialist like Gallinari or Bertans, see, this is the reason I keep bringing these guys up. I'm also keeping in mind our coach, Tom Thibodeau. I'm not buying into this he's changed thing. I'm not. He's going to do what he's always done. Okay, in terms of how he pushes his players. That's what makes him who he is. He's going to push defense and he's going to ride his players. I know some people don't like that, and I'm not sure about it either, but it is what it is. He's going to do that. Okay? Basically what he does, if his player is matched up against the other team's player, when that team player takes him out, Thibodeau will take his guy. When that team's player comes back in, Thibodeau puts his guy back in. That's really how he does it. So if Frank is guarding Westbrook or Frank is guarding Harden, when Harden's in the game, Frank's in the game. When Harden sits, Frank sits. That's how they do it. That's how he's been doing it. Okay? So defensively, that's how he handles himself. But listen, if we don't sign anybody and we got Brazdeikis and we got Knox, you're going to think I'm crazy. But I will be fine this season with a rotation of those two guys at the 4. I have no problem because you want to see what these kids got. You want to push them to their limit. You want to get them out there. And I think Brazdeikis is one of those guys that the more minutes you give him, the better he's going to be. I think, because that seems to be the type of player he is as he gets. Frank is like that. You want some players need to get into a flow, get a lather before they, like I knew a guy in high school and we played for this one coach. And one day the coach just said, I'm going to run, his name was James. I'm going to run James to death. I'm going to just run him to death. And the boy responded with like 26 and 15. And it seemed like the more he was tired, but the coach said, just keep running. And the more he played, the better he got. We got another coach, and the minute he would make a turnover, the coach would pull him, and his numbers plummeted. And said, what's wrong with James? It was nothing wrong with him. The second coach didn't know how to play him. He needed to be out there until he got lathered up and sweaty, and then he would start playing really good. You couldn't. He's not the guy to keep looking over his shoulder. That's Iggy. If you let Iggy just play, or Frank, just let them play, the longer they play, the better they'll get. Okay. Some players you can put that short leash on. Some guys you shouldn't. And Iggy's not one of those. So, I like to see him really on the regular team this year. I know we got cap space. I don't know. We got to spend some of the cap space. We do. But I'd like to see Iggy and Knox get that time. If they end up trading Knox, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy at all. But I hope they don't. And I hope that they give Iggy some time. Give this kid some time. You want to stretch for, you want shooters? You already got one. He's in the G League. His name is Iggy Brazdeikis, and he can shoot the basketball. And again, I'd like to see Kenny Wooten, but Kenny is a little bit more of a project. Like I said, when he grows up, he could become Brandon Clark, but he has some work to do. And he got the coaching staff to give him that work. Okay. So you might see Kenny another year in the G League. And I think that's not a bad thing. Put Kenny another year in the G League, let him come up for his 45 days, and then develop him. This is where the development comes in. But I think we're wasting time keeping Brazdeikis in the G League another season. That's a waste of time. This kid needs to be up here this year, and we need to be playing him. Tell me what you guys think. Shalom.